fighting the last one from a hospital bed, 2 months before he died.
Sing me back home with a song.
You know the voice. You know Mama Tried. What you probably don't know is how much of that career was spent in a room somewhere, arguing with a man in a suit about a song he wasn't allowed to release. He won some, he lost more than he won, and he never once stopped. Number 10, the sound Nashville didn't order. Number 9, the thing he wasn't supposed to say.
Let him sing.
August 1969, Merle Haggard walks onto a national television stage and tells the truth about himself, and the network starts getting angry mail. By then, he's a star. Sing Me Back Home, Branded Man, Mama Tried, had gone to number 1 the year before and sat there a month.
Guitar, playing friend to my request.
Everybody in America knew the songs. What they didn't know, not really, not out loud, was that the man singing them had gone into San Quentin at 20 and come out in 1960. Country music in 1969 did not have a category for that. You could sing about prison. You were not supposed to have been there.
Just before he reached my cell,
Then Johnny Cash puts him on his ABC show and pushes him toward it. And this is where it gets good, because Haggard had watched Cash play a New Year's Day show inside San Quentin at the end of the 50s, from the audience. In the yard the next day, the other players came looking for him, wanting to learn that Luther Perkins lick.
and I heard him tell the warden.
He never told Cash. Cash had no idea. So on national television, Cash brings up San Quentin. Haggard says, "Funny you should mention that." Cash says he doesn't remember Haggard being on that show, and Haggard says, "I wasn't on the show, Johnny. I was in the audience." That's the moment. Not a confession, a punchline with a knife in it.
My old memories come alive.
ABC got letters. Viewers were upset the network had put a convict on the air. The idea that a man might be more than his worst 5 years hadn't reached everybody yet. If you've ever had one bad stretch of your life follow you into every room you walked into for the next 20 years, you know exactly what he was carrying up there.
I recall last Sunday morning.
3 years later, Ronald Reagan gave him a full pardon, but the pardon came from a governor. The stigma came from the industry, and nobody signs a paper for that. Some of you heard Mama Tried for the first time somewhere very specific. A truck, a kitchen radio, you know the place.
Let's look at the numbers. Only 9% of you are actually subscribed. Honestly, that's tough to see. Our team spends days hunting down archives and verifying every single fact just to tell these stories right. If you've made it this far into the video, you're clearly part of the community, so please hit subscribe. It costs nothing and helps us immensely. Now, for those already subscribed, very few of you have made the jump to our membership, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you're the ones who know our value best. If this channel has moved you or inspired you, consider joining. It's the price of one coffee, but it's the literal fuel for this channel. Let's keep this alive together. Back to the story.
Number 8, the song they wouldn't let you hear.
Like the hippies out in San Quentin.
In 1969, Merle Haggard walked into a studio with a love song, and Capitol Records made him record a war song instead. Here's the setup. Okie from Muskogee has just detonated. Number 1, gold record. Haggard is suddenly the most talked about man in country music and the most misread one, because a whole lot of America has decided the song means he's their guy, the voice against the 60s. He doesn't want that, so he brings the label his follow-up. It's called Irma Jackson. It's a song about a white man in love with a black woman and the fact that the world won't let them be together. He'd written it years earlier. Loving v. Virginia, the ruling that struck down the bans on interracial marriage, was 2 years old. Ken Nelson ran Capitol's country division. Nelson was the man who nurtured Haggard's career, who protected his sessions, who let him make records nobody else would have let him make. And Nelson told him no. The line was, I don't believe the world is ready for this yet. Instead, they put him back in the booth and had him cut the Fightin Side of Me. Now stay with me, because here's the twist that still gets me. Irma Jackson didn't stay locked up forever. In 1970, a singer named Tony Booth cut it for MGM as his debut single, and it charted. So somebody else got to put Merle Haggard's song into the world before Merle Haggard did. Haggard finally released his own version in 1972, buried on an album called Let Me Tell You About a Song. Never a single, never pushed. Think about what that costs. Not money, identity. He had a song that would have complicated the picture, that would have shown people who he actually was, and the label chose the flag instead, because the flag was selling. You can spend the rest of your life explaining yourself and never get that first impression back. Number 7, the hit that ate him.
Turn me loose, set me.
The song that made Merle Haggard rich is the same song he spent 45 years trying to get out from under. Okie from Muskogee did everything a song can do. Number 1, CMA Entertainer of the Year in 1970. Single of the Year, Album of the Year.
Think I'll walk off my steady job today.
His concert fee tripled to $10,000 a night. Soldiers at Fort Bragg made him play it 4 times before they'd let him leave the stage, and it welded a costume onto him that never came off. Nixon loved it. Asked Johnny Cash to play it at the White House in 1970. Cash didn't. Said later it had turned into a lightning rod.
Of these dirty old sidewalks.
So Nixon invited Haggard directly, and in March of 1973, Merle Haggard, a pardoned felon in a cowboy hat that had blown into the mud at the airport, played Okie from Muskogee and the Fightin Side of Me for a room full of tuxedos. Nixon's own chief of staff wrote in his diary that the evening was a flop. The crowd didn't know what to do with country music.
Somewhere in the middle of...
Haggard said it felt like playing to mannequins, and there it is, the biggest political moment of his career, and he's standing in front of people who don't hear a word he's saying. They just wanted the chorus. I'll say it plain, and some of you are going to disagree with me. Okie from Muskogee is the most misunderstood song in country music history.
Tired, too much work, and never eat.
Because 40 years later, Haggard was still trying to walk it back. In 2010, he said he'd learned the truth since he wrote it, that he plays it now with a different projection. He hated being cast as the poet laureate of angry white America, but by then the song didn't belong to him anymore.
Haven't got a thing.
You know that feeling when the thing you're best known for is the thing that describes you least? That's a specific kind of loneliness. Writing the anthem for a crowd you don't fully belong to, and having to sing it every single night for the rest of your life. He never dropped it from the set, not once.
Been working every day since I was 20.
Number 6, when the one man who protected him walked away.
Like the night we made love in
11 years, 40 top 10 singles, 24 number ones, and Merle Haggard walked away from Capitol Records anyway, because the only person there who understood him had lost his power.
I guess that
Ken Nelson wasn't just a producer. He was the reason Haggard's records sounded like Haggard's records. He gave him room. He let the Strangers be the band. He argued for him upstairs. But by the mid-70s, Capitol was changing. The label's priorities shifted. Nelson found himself with no real say over what got recorded or when it came out. The decisions were being made above him, by people who'd never set foot in Bakersfield. Here's what he did anyway. Nelson retired, and then he agreed to keep supervising Haggard's sessions until the contract ran out in 1976.
you are my favorite memory.
Unpaid loyalty from a man who no longer had to do anything for anybody. That's the part most country documentaries skip over. And here's what it did to Haggard. He started talking about quitting. Told a reporter he wanted to get out of the spotlight before he got too old. Took 5 months off. No band, no shows, nothing. Then he came back, put the Strangers back together, and went looking for a deal. Because he'd figured out that walking away from the fight didn't feel any better than losing it. MCA got him in 1976. He recorded through Christmas week.
It does change except what you choose to recall.
The MCA years gave him I Think I'll Just Stay Here and Drink, and a run of albums about depression, drinking, and getting older that nobody would have let him make 10 years earlier. Then Epic in 1981. And at Epic, he finally got the one thing he'd been circling his entire career. He produced himself, leaner sound, his hands on the board.
Memory of all.
My Favorite Memory and Big City, both number ones, right out of the gate. If you've ever spent years working for someone who actually got you and watched the company slowly strip away everything that made them useful, you already know why he left. It wasn't the money. It was that the only door left open had nobody standing behind it.
But baby, you are my favorite.
Number 5, The Man Who Hated Kern River.
In the moonlight, the swiftness swept her life away.
1985. Merle Haggard is standing in a record executive's office in Nashville, and he has just decided he's done being polite. The song is Kern River. It's about a man who lost a woman to that water and will never swim it again, and it is one of the starkest things Haggard ever wrote.
There's the South San Joaquin.
It goes to number 10 on the country chart, one of the last big radio hits of his career, and the executive at Columbia, the parent company over Epic, didn't want it recorded at all. Rick Blackburn hated the song and, by Haggard's account, made sure to tell him so.
And Lake Shasta is where I will stay.
Repeatedly, over and over, every time they were in a room together. Then one day, he says it one time too many. And Haggard tells him, "That's about the 5th time you've mentioned it, and I'm about 5 times short of telling you where to go." Then he goes further.
Amen.
He tells Blackburn he's the man who sat at that desk and pushed Johnny Cash out the door, and that history ought to remember him for it. Now, people have argued about the Cash story for 40 years. Some say Cash left on his own for a better offer at Mercury. But that's not the point.
I grew up in an oil town, but my gusher never.
The point is what Haggard believed and what he did about it. He decided a label that could throw away Johnny Cash would throw him away too. So he stopped waiting to be thrown. He bought his way out, paid his own money to end a contract at a major label at 50 years old, with no guarantee of anything on the other side.
First met her, and it was there that I lost my best friend.
Was that the right call? Honestly, I go back and forth on it. It cost him more than he could afford, and everything that happened after it flowed from that decision. But I'll let you decide. Because on a jukebox at last call somewhere tonight, Kern River is still playing, and nobody remembers a single thing Rick Blackburn ever said about it.
The river was a boundary where my darling and I used to swim.
Number 4, he paid to get out over one song.
Hell only me. Crippled soldiers give a damn.
Here's a sentence that shouldn't be possible. Merle Haggard bought himself out of a major label contract to release a single song, and then that song got buried anyway. 1989. The Supreme Court rules that burning the American flag is protected speech.
Rights, well, let her country go on.
Haggard, who had built half his public identity on exactly this kind of moment 20 years earlier, sits down and writes, "Me and crippled soldiers give a damn." He wants it out immediately, while the country is still arguing about it. That's the whole point of a topical song.
Their purple hearts hide their uniforms.
It has a shelf life measured in weeks. CBS Records in Nashville sits on it, so he does the thing almost no artist his age does. He pays them to let him go. Later, he told the New York Times, simply, that he had never been a man who could do what people told him. And here's where it turns.
Should they throw away?
CBS did eventually put the record out, after he complained about it publicly. But by his account, there was no promotion behind it, and they dropped it at a moment when another Haggard single was already working, which under industry practice meant it had nowhere to go.
Now that it's all
He said flat out that it hurt his feelings, that they didn't want it out there in the first place. Then his new label, Curb, took the song he'd bought his freedom to release and put it out as the B-side, under a generic single called When It Rains It Pours, the B-side.
right, well, let her country go on.
In 1990, which meant country radio never had to touch it. That's a specific kind of defeat, winning the fight and still losing the war. He beat one label, signed with another, and ended up in exactly the same place, only poorer. And that buyout money? That's the money he didn't have 2 years later.
Their purple hearts hide their uniforms.
Number 3, the decade they erased him.
Did what I do with a willing.
You remember walking the racks at a record store in the mid-90s? Alan Jackson, Reba, Vince Gill, thick color booklets, big photographs, the whole presentation. And then there's a Merle Haggard album called 1994. No picture of him on the cover. A single folded sheet inside.
So I just dream and keep on being the way I am.
It looks like a tombstone. That's not an accident of taste. That's what a decade of neglect looks like sitting on a shelf. He signed with Curb in 1990. At the time, Curb was the respected independent in town. No bosses in New York or LA. Freedom for the artists. Huge success with Hank Williams Jr. There was no reason to see it coming. His first album for them, Blue Jungle, landed at number 47 with almost nothing behind it. Then Curb released no new Haggard music for 4 years, during the exact years he needed the income most. Because on December 14, 1992, Merle Haggard filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in Sacramento, 55 years old.
Don't fit my shackles the way I
38 number 1 records behind him. That same day, his son Ben was born. Sit with that for a second. The greatest living country songwriter, bankrupt, on the day his boy comes into the world. 1994 charted at 60. 1996 didn't chart at all. And by most accounts, it was the best work he'd done in 10 years.
that barber dancing, but I just dream.
One writer noted his own label didn't get review copies out until the record had been in stores nearly a month. No advertising. Nothing. The crowds shrank. He went from headliner to opening act, playing honky-tonks and county fairs on Saturday nights, while the class of '89 filled arenas. When it finally ended, he put it about as plainly as a man can. People wondered where he'd been for 10 years, he said. He'd been on Curb Records. He said he'd like to settle it with Mike Curb in a boxing ring. And if you've ever built something over 30 years and watched the people who were supposed to be selling it just
Don't fit my shackles the way I
not bother, you already know that this isn't about charts. It's about being made invisible by the people who signed you. He got out in 2000, and then he did something nobody expected. He signed with a punk rock label out of Los Angeles, Epitaph, and made If I Could Only Fly. Best reviews of his life.
don't seem to go there.
Number 2, the time he defended the people who were supposed to be his enemies.
Fightin Side of Me, they're walking on.
March 2003. Natalie Maines tells a London crowd the Dixie Chicks are ashamed the president comes from Texas, and country radio erases the biggest act in the format overnight. Stations pull the records.
When they're running down a country man, they're walking on.
Sponsors walk. Death threats. A talk radio host organizes an anti-Chicks concert and hands out VIP passes to anybody who will trade in their tickets. Now, who is the last person on earth you'd expect to speak up for them? The man who wrote the Fightin Side of Me, the Okie from Muskogee.
Way of life, our fighting men have fought and died to keep.
66 years old, the living symbol of everything that crowd thought it was defending. And in July of 2003, Merle Haggard put an essay on his own website saying he didn't even know the Dixie Chicks, and that watching America jump down their throats for having an opinion was an insult to everyone who ever fought for the right to have one.
The fighting side of me, running down.
He called it a verbal witch hunt. He also asked the question nobody in Nashville wanted asked out loud. Are we afraid of criticism now? And if we are, why? Same year, he put out That's the News, a song taking the media apart for chasing celebrity trials while soldiers were still dying overseas.
Fightin Side of Me. They're walking on.
Different tone entirely from Toby Keith and Daryl Worley, who were dominating the format. He shipped it to stations himself through his own label. It went nowhere on radio. Then in 2007, he stood on a stage, warned the audience that what came next might empty the room, and played a brand new song called Hillary.
If you don't love it, leave it. Let this song that I...
Some of y'all just said I knew it out loud, and some of you are furious right now. That's the whole point of the man. He was never the flag waver they wanted, or the rebel the other side wanted either. He was something harder to sell than both. A guy who actually meant every contradictory thing he ever said. And it cost him, every single time. Number 1, the fight he took to his deathbed.
Learning toward the bad, I kept on turning till mama could.
Here's the cruelest thing country radio ever did to Merle Haggard, and it wasn't dropping him, it was promoting him. They started calling him a legend. In the business, that's a classification.
Know what lay in store, spite of all my son.
Legend means we honor you, we name check you, we put you on the awards show, and we do not play your new records, ever.
Raised me right, but I refused. And I turned 20.
He was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1994, honored at the Kennedy Center in 2010, and by then his new music had received almost no airplay for years. He understood the mechanics of it better than anyone. He said it near the end, if a station puts on a new song of his, they've got to take something off. And the thing they'd take off is, Mama Tried.
Mama tried. The one and only
Which means
rebel.
for the last 25 years of his life, the man he was competing against for radio time was himself. At 30 years old, he kept recording anyway. 66 studio albums, gospel records, a bluegrass record, roots records with a guitarist who'd played on Lefty Frizzell's early sessions.
Growing up to ride on a freight train leaving.
He built his own studio and his own label, working in Tennessee in 2011, and he never stopped saying what he thought. In 2015, at 78, he told a newspaper he couldn't tell what modern country artists were even doing, that there was no melody, no substance, and it was cooling off whether they knew it or not.
Know what lay in store, spite of all my son.
The only new act he had any use for was Sturgill Simpson, and he put him on his own stage. Then December 2015, pneumonia, both lungs, hospitalized. He canceled his February shows. Doctors told him to stay home and stay off the road. He wrote from the hospital bed instead.
Imprisoned in life without parole, no one could steal.
And on February 9th, 2016, Merle Haggard walked across the road from his house to his own studio, sat down with his son Ben on electric guitar, and recorded a song called Kern River Blues about leaving Bakersfield, about water that got taken and politicians who lied about it. That's the last thing he ever recorded.
Hold me anymore. And I turned 21.
6 weeks earlier, Mama Tried had been selected for the National Recording Registry, Permanent Preservation, National Significance. That was March 23, 2016. 14 days later, on April 6th, on his 79th birthday, he was gone. He was still writing, still recording, still swinging.
Learning toward the bad, I kept on turning